something I don't do often. This is kind of like my second time, and I am honored to have a very special guest.
Oh
Someone,
no, don't do that.
oh yes, honey, you special. I'm pumping you up, Mike.
I
This is someone I
appreciate it.
know. I know him personally and his family, and I am just crazy about them. I tell him that every time I see him, I have kind of a sick obsession with Mike and Jakini and the rest of them. But today is not personal, it is business. We have a town hall coming up October the 24th, and we want you to meet us here live on Facebook and on YouTube, where we'll be speaking to some exceptional panelists. And we want to start introducing you to our panelists by introducing you to a very special guest of mine. He is going to be a panelist on this upcoming town hall where we talk about the community and the power of our political voice. One of our very special guests is the Mikel Whittier Jr. Can I say that, Junior? He is a strategist of justice and health equity at the STL Integrated Health. And we want to talk to him more about cleanmissouri.org, about Proposition 3, which is going to be on your ballots. Oh, I can't talk today, which is going to be on your ballots in November. So I'm excited to get this conversation started. I'm excited to talk to you, Mike. I thank you again for speaking with FinOp Consulting Group. Again, we are a company that offers not only financial education, which is our goal, but we understand that financial education don't just start with the knowledge of financial options, but it's behaviors. And we want to address four elements that we feel enable you to engage in not just financial investing, but in living your best life, in creating a process that works for you. So that's enough about FinOp. We want to talk to Mike. If you don't mind me calling you Mike, I'm going
That's
to,
fine.
yay, I'm going to introduce him one more time and then we're going to start talking. So, again, this is, if you're just now joining us, thank you for joining us. We are talking to Mikel Whittier, strategist of justice and health equity from St. Louis Integrated Health. Hi, Mike, and welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. And I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. Happy birthday! I
Not
didn't get to
thank you. Listen.
I didn't get to tell you yesterday, so I'm telling you now. Happy birthday!
I appreciate it. Yay. This is better. We have an audience. Okay. So, Mike, to get the conversation started, I just have a few questions for you that I feel like our audience may have questions about as well. I wanted to start with what is Proposition 3? And can you put that in layman's terms for us?
Certainly, certainly. So I'm pushing share on Facebook right now. So I'm
Oh,
sharing the comment.
yay. Get anybody else listening, share, share, share. Stop what you're doing now and share, share, share. Thank you, Mike.
No problem at all. So certainly, Amendment 3 actually. So it's not a proposition; it's a
It's an
statewide
amendment.
amendment that would change our constitution and become law. And
Wow.
what Amendment 3 is and all about is repealing our 2018 vote for voter protection and fair districts. So in 2018, we voted for Clean Missouri. It was Amendment 1 on the 2018 ballot, and it passed 2-1. Missourians spoke loud and clear and said, we want fair districts. We want corruption to leave our state. And now the state legislature proposed an amendment to undo all of that. And it's disguised as a reform bill saying that we're going to clean up Missouri even more. But in actuality, there's only $105 in changes. There's $5 change to lobbyist gifts, meaning people that lobby for changes in our government. But then there's $100 change to the state Senate candidate contribution limits. And so you're talking about $105. And the third bullet on that ballot initiative is everything about redistricting. And what that really means is this
Mhm.
in short. Um, The state legislature only want to count people who are eligible to vote when drawing up districts. So
Mm,
those who are 17 and under, those who are non-citizens will not be represented in our state government based on this amendment. And we know, especially in the Black community, that people who are coming home who are on parole are ineligible to vote as well.
mhm,
So you're
mhm.
talking about entire households potentially that are not represented in our state government. And we have the numbers, we have the figures. 21% of our white community wouldn't be represented in Jefferson City. 28% of our Black and African American communities would not be represented in Jefferson City. But then, lastly, if that wasn't bad enough, 54% of our Latinx and Asian American communities would not be represented in Jefferson City. And as we talk about equity, advancing our state, talk about Black people and families being 3/5 of a person. This is what is the undertones of this amendment. And there's a point in history where a policy like this existed, and that was Jim Crow, Mississippi. 1979 was the last time a policy like this existed. So this will not only take us back, this will make Missouri the only state in the country that doesn't count everyone when drawing districts. And this has a profound impact on representation in the democratic process. This has an impact on funding. And so the fiscal note is added to the ballot language. So when you read your ballots, if you have them already or you're waiting to vote in person on November 3rd, you'll see that it says that there's no cost benefit to this. There's no cost savings. And actually, counties and local governmental entities are expecting a decrease in revenues, meaning your school systems, our public health, our public safety infrastructure, your local municipal government will have less funding to operate. And if you're a resident of St. Louis City, you already know we are constrained and have a tight budget. If you're a resident of St. Louis County, the same thing exists there. And we have a bunch of municipalities across St. Louis County that will see a reduction in funding. And we know that the first people that are affected by that are our underserved, underrepresented, and divested communities, mainly communities of color. And so that's why we're saying no on three. There's a bipartisan coalition of over 300 plus organizations that are saying no on three. Mayor Cruson is saying no on three. Dr. Sam Page, the county executive, is saying no on three. Tashara Jones, our city treasurer, is saying no on three. There are Republican legislators, there are Democratic legislators, the NAACP. There are all kind of organizations that are saying no on Amendment 3. And so we want to make it clear that Missouri politicians can't undo the will of Missouri voters. We've already voted on this, and we just want to say no once and for all. That's why we're saying no on Amendment 3.
So when we talk about voting and voting no on Amendment 3, we think about voting for president, and the electoral college is the one who actually, votes him in. It's not really the popular vote. So what do you say to people who say, okay, if I say no on Amendment 3, something on a local or a state level, how does my vote count? And will it count?
Yeah, certainly. So this is a ballot initiative, and so in order for a ballot initiative to come on the ballot, there's one of two things: the state legislature either has to introduce it, or the will of Missourians by getting signatures across the state allows for an initiative to become on the ballot. And so our 2018 ballot initiative was just that. We got enough signatures for Missourians to say we want to clean up Missouri politics. And now the Missouri legislature is trying to undo that. And so with ballot initiatives like this, everything is a popular vote. Your vote absolutely counts, every single one of them. So if there's 100 people voting, and we strike down Amendment 3, 51 to 49, that means 51 of those votes counted. And similarly, we need to make sure that everyone turns out because, yes, the federal elections have consequences. I think we are seeing that real time, but local elections have just as much consequences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, perfect example is we reelected Bob McCullough the same week that Mike Brown was killed.
Mm.
Uh, and so those are perfect examples of how local elections, how state level amendments have consequences. And so we want to make sure that we're represented. We want to make sure that we turn out. There are folks already voting in the state of Missouri, but then all across the country as well. If you feel that you're not safe due to the pandemic, you still have time to request an absentee ballot. So if you are at high risk, to COVID contraction and death, you can go to the Secretary of State's website and request an absentee ballot. Why I say absentee ballot instead of mail-in ballot, and you hear all the controversy about mail-in ballots. Absentee ballots are a lot more flexible. You don't need a notary. You can actually turn it in person. If for some reason you feel like you don't want to trust the mail, you can actually go to your local election authority and turn that ballot in, and it could be submitted right in front of you. And so there are certainly ways in which to get around the anxiety around mail-in ballots, around the pandemic. We want to make sure that everyone practice their constitutional right to vote, and you will certainly be represented. And it requires all of us to show up and show out.
Nice. So you talked about finding a commissioner or a location. How would they do that? Do they just Google where to go to turn in an absentee ballot?
Yeah, so you can, for Missourians, what you can do is go to the Secretary of State's website,
Mhm.
and you can actually request a sample ballot. You can see what's on your ballot. Amendment 3 isn't the only thing that's on your ballot. The president isn't the only thing on your ballot. So do your research ahead of time. You can actually go and check your status. I know it's a little late. The last day to register to vote was last week. But you can double check to make sure your name is correct, your address is correct, and be prepared. You don't want to wait to the day of or the day before to research and be prepared. And so just go to your Secretary of State's website. It's all there, everything you need to know for voting. If it's a little confusing, what you can do is go to 866ourvote.org. And there's information about the Missouri election. If there's anybody listening to this that's not from Missouri, you can research your state as well. It's a national platform where you can do research. But then if you have concerns about the voting process, if you see something that's illegal, you can report that. And there's lawyers there that will fight on behalf of not only Missourians, but voting citizens across the country. And so we want to make sure you show up, but not only you show up, that you're prepared, because I'm working for a campaign. I can say no on 3, but I can't tell you who to vote for. And so you have to be prepared. You have to research the issues. There's a lot of misinformation and fake news out there. And so we have to understand that to decipher what's real and what's fake.
Nice. Thank you. Okay, so I went on your website, cleanmissouri.org. And that, again, that's clean Missouri, spelled out.org. And when I was looking at your website, I noticed that you often refer to them as gerrymandering masterminds. I saw that word more than once. Why would you use that choice of words when describing the proponents of Amendment 3? Why,
Certainly.
where is that coming from? Hmm.
Certainly. So, how politics and policies work is most times your state legislators are not writing these policies, and some lawyers out of Kansas City actually wrote Amendment 3, and so that's why we say masterminds. And to the strategy to only count people who are citizens of voting age is a national gerrymandering strategy. It is advantageous to non-Hispanic whites. And we want to make sure that people understand that this is a national strategy, that there are folks, experts who research how to do this, how to sustain the status quo. And we want to say no against all of that. And that's why we're saying no on 3. We know that words are intentional and they're strong. And so we want to be very intentional with those words as well. And so just know that these are folks who do their research every day that want to sustain the status quo. All policies benefit people, and sometimes there's intentional and unintentional consequences to these policies. And we know when you start reducing the representation of communities, who's affected most. And that's those communities that are already divested in, that are left by the wayside. And we want to make sure we stand up for families. We want to make sure we stand up for communities and say no to these masterminds.
Absolutely. You said wording. A lot of times we don't listen to what they're saying to, as they would say, talk about us in our face. They use words like, I know a lot when it comes to real estate, to we want to keep the area safe. We want to reduce devaluing property value. What happens? How do you decrease the property value? That's when you let certain people in that will decrease the property value. A lot of times we're not paying attention to that, and they use these words on mass media, communicating them in our face just to say that they're leaving the underserved out. Another thing that we talked about was funding. And we understand that when we have abandoned homes in St. Louis City, or when there aren't enough citizens, that impacts our funding, that impacts the amount of people, like you said, that are, how do you say, that can legitimately, in their words, vote, are literally able to vote. So we want to pay attention to those types of things. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. I want to ask you, so how can, other than voting, what can we do to support uh, not only your cause for this particular campaign, but for Clean Missouri? I'm sorry, listen, tongue tied. It's the day after my birthday. Pray for me. But to support Clean Missouri .org, what can we do,
Yes,
Jimmy?
certainly. So the first thing you can do is share this with your friends, family, loved ones. While I like to think that I'm a strong champion and a great speaker on behalf of the campaign,
Yeah.
I know that what I'm able to do is limited. I know that Melva can reach out to her loved ones better than I can. And so we want to make sure you have the talking points. So you can go to the website, screenshot stuff. You can go to facebook.com/Clean Missouri. All the talking points are there. We just had some big endorsements come through, and you could just read all about it and screenshot it and share it with your loved ones. Tell them to text it to 10 people. You text it to 10 people, and we know through relational organizing, we are strong. If you want to be more involved, you can go to cleanmissouri.org/volunteer. And you can phone bank, you can text bank. You get those annoying calls from people saying, "Did you vote? How did you vote? Did you know this was on the ballot?" You could be one of those people. If you've received a random text saying, "Vote for this," those are actually people doing that on the behalf of campaigns as volunteers. And you can do that. But as I mentioned, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, the best way to do it is with your friends, family, loved ones, your colleagues, and make sure that people are aware. Just posting it on your social media, doing everything that we can to let people know that we want to say no to gerrymandering. We want to say no to not being represented. We want to say no to our families being reduced in representation in the democratic process. And we want to say no to our funding in our local government being reduced. And so just share, 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 share.
Nice, nice. Yay. So we're not going to hold you or our audience long, but I have a couple other questions to ask, two more questions
That's
that I
perfect.
like that I like to ask. Just as a little sidebar, or I'm not gonna say a sidebar, but I feel like when we are getting to know, a person in their campaign, it's fun to see two things. One, what is a must-read book? What is your recommendation? I know that sounds left field, but we want to
Now,
promote education. So, what would be a book you would recommend?
and in the spirit of financial literacy and just my own personal investment journey, one of the books that I've read this year is Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. It's all about how to properly save, how to properly invest in the stock market, uh, the myths and misinformation, and the lies that are sold to us by Wall Street about investing in 401ks, and really just empowering people to help them understand that you can be an investor yourself. But then he also interviews the top Wall Street gurus, and that information, their strategies are broken down for you. And so, what to invest in, in the stock market, how to invest, but then also giving people formulas for creating that absolute financial freedom. We think that we need $1 billion to do that, and $1 billion is a lot of money.
It is.
And so it helps us understand what's our walk away money. If how can we create 10 years of our salaries in a couple years, and then how can we use that to sustain our financial freedom? And so you'll be surprised once you start doing the calculations, once you understand more about the stock market and how it works, but then also how you can be an investor from where you are right now. You'll be surprised how fast you can get to financial freedom. So that's one that I fell in love with. Certainly a lot of people on social media that I've been following over this past year. I want everyone listening to really understand that this is a golden opportunity that we've been handed. Although we are in the middle of a crisis, rest in peace to all those who have been lost to the pandemic. But then also, we have to understand, especially the Black community, that this is an opportunity for us to get skin in the game.
Yeah.
The cheapest that some of the stocks will ever be. Apple did a split recently. It's under what I think it ended the day at 120.
Yeah, they did a 4-1 split. So
Yeah,
if you had one share of Apple, it turned into 4 shares. I have
yeah,
a cousin who had 3 shares. Now she has 12. And that seems small to you, but when it's 100, and I think it was 116 at the time it split. So you're talking 116 now times 12 shares
yeah,
instead of three.
and not only that, you see the growth of Apple over 5 years. It
Yeah.
last split in what, 2014,
Yes.
and since that split, and I think it was a 7-1 split at that time. But since that split, Apple has it went up to $500.
Yeah.
And so you see these cycles. And so that's why I say it's a great opportunity to be an investor. You can't be scared of red days. When the stock market is red, that means you need to buy, especially quality
Yes.
stocks, yes, quality companies. But do it at the discretion of financial advisors and people that will help you understand, with no incentives attached to it. Because there are great companies out here. You don't want to be caught with investing in Hertz, who went bankrupt, or what is it, Kodak, that was
Yeah.
a money grab. You don't want those trash companies. You want
Yeah.
quality companies. And so there's great people out here to help you with that, but you have to understand it at a basic level. And so that's why I recommend Money Master the Game, because it really evolved my understanding.
Oh, I love that. I love that. The one thing I say all the time is when it comes to investing and saving, it's about compounding your money. And the one thing you
Compounding
can't get,
interest
yes, and the one thing you can't get back is
is
time.
time.
Time is
Yep.
money. So when do you start? You start
Yep.
now.
Start now.
If you
Yep.
have it, you develop a plan to save for it, but you really don't. You said that, Mike. There's a value stock. There are companies. I look at this one site, Motley Food. And they make recommendations. I'm not here to make a recommendation. I'm here to educate. But they make recommendations all the time. They had a recommendation last year. I'm saying I cannot talk today. They had a recommendation last week
Yeah.
where you could buy three value stock for under $50 for all three. And they gave all of the details to why these companies were moving up and climbing up. So there's really, never too little to start saving, to start building your portfolio.
Certainly,
Mike,
and I just got to throw something in there
go
because of that.
ahead.
And you'll see pricey stock like Amazon is in the
Yeah,
thousand, Tesla is expensive. Uh, all these really great companies are really expensive. However, what you can do instead of owning fractional shares of a company,
mhm.
you can own a percentage of the company within what we call an ETF or an index. And
Yes,
so the market always wins. The market
yes,
always grows. And so you can literally invest in an index or ETF that has a percentage of a company in it, and it's just going to continue to grow. And so when you have a quality index, you
yes.
can just throw your money in that, buy it monthly, and you could just watch your money grow. And so you don't have to know much about individual companies. You could just look at a portfolio of companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon,
Mm-hmm,
Google, and they
mm-hmm,
all of these great companies sit in these ETFs, and you can say, all right, I'm just going to buy that one monthly. And if you buy
mm-hmm,
that one monthly, you can have 10, 15, 20% growth over the span of a lifetime of 30 years, and
mm-hmm.
you can see exponential growth. So just a
Yeah,
gem there for
absolutely.
those listening.
Yeah. Okay. So then as they would say, I'm gonna piggyback on your gym. If you if you can't afford to invest in the index, there's another short-term game that we call options. And options, you can control portions of that stock. So, say for instance, I wanted to invest in Apple, but I don't have enough to buy a share. I can pay a broker to invest in 100 shares that I can control at sometimes $2 a share, $3 a share, depending on the expiration date. So, what we want you to do is to listen to these terms that Mike and I are throwing out: ETFs and indexes and options, and Google them, look them up. Become educated. Understand again that you don't have to be rich to invest, but the time to start investing is now. And you can start it at whatever level you're able to start it on. But another thing I want to round back to is understanding the power of who you are, your voice, not just your dollar, but your voice. We want to vote no on Amendment 3 because we don't want to be taken back to a place of Jim Crow laws and of being feeling oppressed, right? So I think one before we go and leave them, can you tell us a little bit more about cleanmissouri.org? We want to say again how you can find that, how you can find Mike, how you can find more information on Amendment 3. Just basically close us out with some knowledge, Mike.
Okay, that's perfect. I could do that. So for those who may have joined a little late, we're
Mhm.
saying no on Amendment 3. I serve as the coalition's director on the Clean Missouri No on Amendment 3 campaign. And basically, in short, all of this amendment is trying to do is undo our 2018 vote that we voted overwhelmingly 2-1 to increase voter protections to make sure districts are fair. And the state legislature said, no, Missouri, you didn't know what you voted for. And not only did they try to undo this vote, they made it worse. They wrote in there the details say that Missouris can't sue for bad or rigged maps. Judges can't throw out any illegal plans. Our children won't count. Our immigrants won't count. And we want to make sure to say everyone counts. And not only that everyone counts, is we don't want our local governmental entities seeing decreased funding because of an amendment. And so because of these reasons, we're saying no on 3. And book choice, I'm going to throw that out there again. Money Master the Game. It's a great way to start, great way to understand that we talked about and briefly. We didn't expect that. That wasn't planned, y'all. I
No, it
promise.
was not.
But, but we want to make sure that people feel empowered, not only at the polls, but financially, spiritually, mentally, physically. Wealth is with your health, your abilities to thrive, and so we want to make sure to maintain that. So I just thank you for having me, Melva. Thank you for allowing me to use your platform to share a little bit about Amendment 3. I look forward to the panel coming up, and hopefully everyone out there can join us.
Yay! Listen, you make it to where I don't have to close. You close for me.
You told me to close it out.
As you should. As you should. Thank you, Mike, for joining us. Thank you for being my very special guest tonight. Thank you for joining us as one of our panelists on October 24th. Again, October 24th, we'll be live on Facebook and on YouTube. We'll be talking to Mike along with other wonderful experts at their fields or in their fields. You said it at first. You said it just in your closing. I'm sorry. That we want to cover those things for ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. We want to make sure we are balanced so that we can move forward, have the tools and the materials we need for a forward motion life. Thank you again, Mike, for talking to us. I really appreciate your knowledge and expertise. I thank you again because I probably would have gone in just trying to vote for some stuff real quick. Now I feel more informed. Looking forward again to talking to you next Saturday. Did you want to say anything else before we leave?
No, that's been awesome and a privilege. But again, make sure you all are researching these things that are on your ballot. You don't want to show up and be shocked. You want to know the judges. You want to know the representatives locally, federally. You want to know the amendments, the propositions, anything that's on the ballot that affects you, your loved ones, your family, and your community. And so don't be ill prepared because that could be extremely consequential.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for you and for the community.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I think this is where we drop the mic. Look, pun not intended, but this is where we drop the mic. Thank you all for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you on the 24th. Thank you again, Mike. Always a pleasure talking to you, and we'll see you all soon.